Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is the the prominent Professor Johnson at Proclamation News and Governance. Just want to say thank you already. Proclamation News and Governance. We're going to have a short break. Well, we're just going to start what there is in store for us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Our extraordinary NHS has now succeeded in 17.7 million people across the UK, and nearly a year after this pandemic began, this unparalleled national effort has decisively shifted the odds in our favour, so that we no longer have to rely simply on lockdowns and restricting our behaviour and putting our lives on hold. But with every day that goes by, this programme of vaccination is creating a shield around the entire population, which means that we're now travelling on a one-way road to freedom, and we can begin safely to restart our lives and do it with confidence. And I want to be frank about exactly what that means and the trade-offs involved. The vaccines reduce the danger of COVID, they save lives, and they keep people out of hospital. But no vaccine against any disease has ever been 100% effective. So whenever we ease lockdown, whether it's today or in 6 or 9 months, we've got to be realistic and accept that there will be more infections, hospitalizations, and therefore, sadly, more deaths, just as there are every year flu. Even if we sustain the lockdown indefinitely, which would itself cost lives and do immeasurable harm to our children, we would not be able to eradicate this disease. And that's why it's right gradually to replace the protection afforded by the lockdown with the protection of the vaccines. And our approach is to move with the utmost care and advancing in 4 steps, each with a minimum of 5 weeks apart, so we can properly judge the impact of each relaxation before we move on. And you can see the details of all of this on gov.uk. We'll be led at every stage by data, not dates, and we will apply 4 tests: the pace of the vaccination programme, the effectiveness of the vaccines, the pressure on the NHS, and the risks of any new variants of COVID. And therefore, as we look at the data today, I can confirm that 2 weeks from today, Monday the 8th of March, we will begin step 1. And schools and colleges across England will reopen and teaching in classrooms can start again. All the evidence shows that schools are safe and the risk posed to children by COVID is vanishingly small. But to offer even greater reassurance, we're introducing twice-weekly testing of secondary school and college pupils and asking them to wear face coverings for the rest of this term. Students on practical courses can return to university, but all others will need to continue learning online, and we'll review the situation before the end of the Easter holidays. We will allow breakfast and after-school clubs to restart, and among other changes, on March the 8th you'll be able to have a coffee on a bench or a picnic in a park with one person outside your household. And because we know how stressful this time has been and how people yearn to see friends and family, if only fleetingly, we will now go further. And on the 29th of March, you can meet more of your friends and family outside, including in either as 2 households or subject to the rule of 6. And then we'll go on to step 2, which is no earlier than the 12th of April. And this is a big moment because shops will return and reopen, hairdressers, nail salons will reopen, pubs and restaurants will all be able to serve customers outside, precisely because we know that outside the risk of transmission is lower. And then 5 weeks after that, no earlier than May the 17th, we'll go to step 3 and open all our hospitality sector to service indoors, pubs, bars, restaurants, along with hotels and cinemas, and subject to capacity limits, we will also open sports stadia, concert halls restrictions, resuming large-scale events like business conferences and football matches, lifting the limits on weddings and reopening nightclubs. All of these steps will apply in England, and the government will continue to do whatever it takes to protect jobs and livelihoods across our whole United Kingdom for the duration of the pandemic. Now, I know there are some who would like to accelerate the timetable. I know, of course, there are others who would like to be more cautious and stay in the slow lane. And I understand both points of view, and I sympathise, because levels of infection are still high, and we must strike a very careful balance and always accept that we've got to be humble in the face of nature. But also, we must accept that we cannot persist indefinitely with restrictions that have separated families.
Listen to the whole of that, ladies and gents. Thank you for being patient. We're going to move on into what is in the headlines today. Proclamation news and gatherings. Thank you ever so much for coming through. Please share, please subscribe. We need to get more people on board, following and subscribing, trying to participate with the. We're gonna see what Boris Johnson's up to. He's called in for an inquiry into Carrie Symonds. Carrie Symonds, his fiancée, influence in her number 10. Carrie Symonds is former head of communications for the Conservative Party and the Prime Minister's fiancée. A Conservative think tank has called for an independent inquiry into Boris Johnson's fiancée, Carrie Symonds, and her possible influence in government. I mean, I'm a Conservative politics influencer myself. I mean, this is what I do day in, day out. I've been doing it for quite a long time now. Always giving people the upvote why to vote Conservative, because they've been phenomenal for decades and decades. The Bow Group said number 10 needed to clarify her position after reports is in the media that she was taking a central role in running the country. Miss Symonds used to be a Conservative Party head of communications, but no longer holds an official role. And Downing Street said it was incorrect she plays a central role. Speaking on Monday, the Prime Minister, Press Secretary Nicola Sturgeon added, the Prime Minister's fiancée is on maternity leave. She's raising their son, Wilf. She said Symonds would shortly begin a new role as head of communications at wildlife charity, the Aspinall Foundation. Miss Symonds' first job in politics was working for then Tory MP and then now Peer Lord Zac Goldsmith. In 2010, she began working as a press officer for the Conservative Party and 2 years later worked on Mr Johnson's successful campaign to be re-elected mayor in London. After rising through the ranks, she left her role as head of communications for the party in 2018. And the next year, she was linked with Mr Johnson romantically. The pair announced their engagement in February 2020 and they lived together in Downing Street with their son Wilfred, who was born in April last year. Miss Symonds has no official role either in the party or the government. However, media reports have claimed she advises the Prime Minister on an informal basis from issues of animal welfare through to who to appoint in key roles, and that she clashed with his former chief advisor, Dominic Cummings. In the huge hazards, the Bow Group, which describes itself as Britain's oldest Conservative think tank and counts Tory MPs and peers among its members, has called for an independent inquiry and review into Miss Symonds' powers over the government. I'm doing my journalism. Please sit tight, enjoy it, observe it, stay preserved, and have a great show. The group's chairman, Ben Harris-Quinney, said she currently holds on official role in the Conservative Party or the government, yet consistent reports in the press suggests that Miss Symonds is taking a central role in running the country without any authority or accountability to do so. She has not been elected, she has not been appointed, she holds no legal or constitutional powers to make decisions relating to who should hold government posts. To be partly to privilege information or set the policy direction of the country. It is therefore urgent that a review and inquiry takes place to determine what Miss Symonds' role in the government of the United Kingdom is, and has been to date. Mr. Harris Quinney said, failing to clarify a position potentially has huge hazards for the government, the Conservative Party, and the nation. He added the public key take a very dim view of cronyism. Democracy in Britain is a must, and it must be sacred. And no one should be involved in running a country without accountability to the people. Conservative MP Laura Trott told the BBC that briefings against the Prime Minister's fiancée are distasteful. Speaking on Radio 4's Westminster Hour, Miss Trott said, I used to work with Carrie. She's an incredibly talented and able person, and I think there should be some consideration given about whether some of these things would be said about a man. It's very distasteful, and I think it's incredibly unnecessary. Businesswoman and wife of former Prime Minister Samantha Cameron has also previously suggested Miss Symonds has undue influence over a party is sexist. Last month, she told BBC Radio 4's Woman Hour, it could happen if you were a husband or wife potentially, but I think that is very unfair to pick her out as having some kind of undue influence. In my view, your husband or partner is the Prime Minister. They're quite able to take decisions themselves. They have a huge team of advisors. And so the idea that is the wife, you'll somehow, influence them over and above what they think or what advice they're getting from their team. I think it's kind of dreaming, really, for the Prime Minister, she says. Samantha Cameron. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for. Don't forget, we've got 6th of May elections coming up in the UK. Make sure you go on the website, 6th of May elections 2021. Get your vote ready and make your vote. We've got, how many listeners we've got now? 250 something. Thank you ever so much. I'm on my live TV as well. Also, ladies and gents, we are proudly sponsored by PSS Alarms. They are very etiquette and pragmatic work carried out. All areas covered include central station monitoring provided, all worked according to insurance requirements. This is a friend of mine's company. He's carried out works in Harry Kane's stepmother's house in Hertfordshire, Potter's Bar. He's carried out etiquette works in Essex, such as Casbah restaurants, and many more big businesses, such as nightclubs, pubs, offices. Your equity is safety is paramount, so make sure you get it protected by CCTV alarms. So give Tarek Khan a call. The contact details are 07908 07908 07908 216 142 216 142 07908 216 142 07908 216 142. Ask to speak to Tarek Khan. Installation and maintenance of intruder alarms, fire alarms, CCTV, all work guaranteed and certified to our SSAIB standards with 24-hour call-out service. Can provide CCTV for pubs, clubs, restaurants, or new business set up to secure your business, mention Professor Johnson for an extra discount. Secure your home, secure your business. Your safety and priorities within your business are paramount, so think safety, think first. Secure your equity. Support your profession, in other words. Anyway, Sir Keir Starmer urges government to buy more food from British farmers. The government should buy more British food, Sir Keir Starmer will say in a speech to the National Farmers Union Conference. Labour leader will also argue that the idea his party is anti-countryside is more perception than reality. Meanwhile, the NFU leader, Minette Batters, will urge politicians to address the gap between urban and rural areas. Environment Secretary George Eustace is also expected to address the conference. During his speech, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to say the government should look at whether more of its catering spend could go towards buying British food. A 2014 report said the public sector spent about 2.4 billion on food for schools, hospitals, and the armed forces. Sir Keir will argue that money from his proposed COVID recovery bond scheme could go towards helping rural communities, for example, by investing in long-term food protections. The proposed bond, which Sir Keir outlined last week, would offer people a savings account with the government at a competitive interest rate. And the cash raised would then be spent on rebuilding the country's post-COVID-19. Sir Keir's appearance at the conference will be the first by Labour leader since 2018, and he will use the opportunity to tackle perceptions of a distance that has grown between his party and rural communities. He will urge that Labour has strong connections to the countryside, citing its support for protecting British standards. He also tell the audience about his experience of working on a farm as a teenager, as well as highlighting that Labour First Leader, Keir Hardie, has the son of a farmer. No party can claim to represent the country. If we don't represent the countryside, he will say. During her conference speech, Miss Batters will warn of a gap between rural and urban communities and a call for better broadband, more money to tackle crime and changes to the planning system. Minette Batters has been president of the National Farmers Union since 2018. Investment in farming and in rural Britain not only brings about obvious benefits to food production, but can have massive benefits to the whole country, Miss Batters will say. In the last 12 months, he taught us one thing. It's that we are all in this together, and a country which levels up everyone everywhere is a stronger country. Responding to Labour leaders' comments, a Conservative spokeswoman said, "It was that Sir Keir Starmer's political games as shadow Brexit secretary that kept us tied to the common agriculture policy that has held our farming industry back for so long. Conservatives are using our independence to deliver a better, fairer farming system in England, which will be tailored to the interests of farmers." Back to Boris Johnson, ladies and gents. Moving on.
Millions of pupils out of school. It's thanks to judgment is now changing in our favour, and thanks to the vaccinations, there is great fear. It comes to its own and the time of reasons. Slide, which is familiar, I think, to anyone who's watch these press conferences shows the number of people testing positive for COVID-19 in the UK. And as you can see, there are essentially two things to take away from this. The first of which is that the number testing positive has fallen and is continuing to fall. But the second is that the rates are still very high at over 11,000 cases on a 7 average rolling basis. Next slide, please. When you look at number of people in hospital with COVID in the UK, again you can see there is a significant fall that is continuing, but the rates are still high and they're only slightly below the height of the first peak we had last year. So definitely things are heading in the right way, but remain at a high level. Next slide, please. And then if we look at the number of people who have sadly died with following a positive test result for COVID-19, these are also falling. And the most recent 7-day average is 480 deaths a day. So still high, but falling and falling steadily at this point in time. Next slide, please. Now, all of the things we've seen so far largely are done, or probably almost entirely are done, due to the activities of the general public in the UK and all 4 nations of the UK, staying at home and following the lockdown guidelines. But we have had this really extraordinary rollout of vaccination across all 4 nations of the UK, and you can see in this graph that this line is continuing to go up steadily day on day. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we would expect the impact of this to be. And the Prime Minister has also asked me to talk a bit about the result of 3 studies that were released today from England and from Scotland. So the first thing in this slide to say is that the great majority, well over 90%, nearer 99% of those who sadly die of COVID are in the groups, the JCVI, Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation groups, 1 to 9. And they're in the dark blue, and this is a study of people in hospitals in the UK. For those, 86% are people who are in groups 1 to 4. These are people who are over the age of 70. And at this stage, we have vaccinated the great majority of people in those groups, including in care and nursing homes, who wish to be vaccinated, a very, very high proportion. So and not just because of people staying home, guidance and instructions, which people are to an extraordinary degree, but also because of the effects of vaccination, because people have now had these vaccines. We're now on the middle bar, which is people in groups ages 50 to 69, already going very rapidly through those over the age of 65, and people who have significant health problems, who are under 65, but who we want to accelerate the period by which they're vaccinated. So they too are being vaccinated early on. So this will lead to a significant further reduction in the risks of people dying. And this also includes a significant number of people who are then hospitalised, who are not in the first 4 groups. But there are people who get severe disease and are hospitalised under the age of 50. And it's important to understand that we must not leave them behind in vaccination, because that there are still severe cases in people who otherwise have no other health problems, as well as people who've got predictable health problems in hospitals across the UK under the age of 50. Next slide, please. So my final slide is just to make that point in a different way. And these are data looking at the proportion of people admitted to hospital with COVID-19 by age here in England. And what you can see is people over the age of 65, the great majority of whom are now vaccinated, make up 58% of those people, but people under 65 make up a very substantial 42%. So there's a lot of people who would, if they got COVID, might go on to develop severe disease and go into hospital, still unvaccinated, and we have quite a way to go in all 4 nations of the UK, but making very fast progress. Now, how effective are these vaccines? And that's a question which we said we think they're effective. Trials are very good to date. What was released today, both in England and in Scotland, were 3 studies which tried to address this problem. And this is what the Prime Minister asked me to try to lay out. The first of them is a study done called the Ceremonies study that was done showed is that at 21 days, there was a 72% reduction of the effectiveness of the vaccine, but the vaccine led to a 72% reduction in the number of people who developed an infection, even a mild infection, at 21 days after just 1 dose of the vaccine, and this increased further to 86% if they had a second dose. So that's extremely good protection just from mild infection. Now, obviously, you have to have mild infection to go on to get severe disease. And then the second study, which is an important additional piece of information from Public Health England, showed that you got significant protection also in older people, including people over the age of 80.
I was watching that last night. Well, it's not last night, it's today's. That's Chris Whitty. Chris Whitty. Looking to Welwyn Garden City, Welwyn Hatfield, Hertfordshire. Beauty and face painting business honoured at award ceremony. Face painting business paint party by Rachel is an up for an award. Welwyn Garden City face painting business and a Hatfield beauty business have been honoured at 2 top award ceremonies, mum of 2 in Welwyn Garden City. John Lewis employee Rachel Braverstock has been running a face painting business called Paint Party by Rachel for just over 2 years. In that time, she has painted the face of the only way Essex star Saffron Lemprey at a birthday party event on ITV reality drama. But her success does not end there, and she has now become a finalist for the party supplier. An award won by local business, Little Ankle Biters in Hearts. Face painting business, Paint Party by Rachel is up for award. Over 12,000 people across the Hearts area. To raise the final stage with just 4 others is a huge achievement for her small business. She said, I had to adopt my business so it was more COVID friendly, so I started using my creative skills to offer window painting, which was very popular around the Christmas period. This year I've been painting shop windows for businesses as are currently closed with inspiring and uplifting messages to show support and hope to the community through these very difficult times. My next venture is to paint colourful birthday signage on residential windows outside for people to enjoy while having to celebrate at home this year. She hopes to go back to doing what she absolutely loves, which is creating smiles and happy memories for all families very soon. A Hatfield business has also been nominated in another award, this time the Hair Beauty Awards UK as Lash Stylist of the Year and Best Eyelash Extension Salon of the Year. She said, pre-COVID, we were thriving. A thriving salon team working towards a larger salon space and training new treatments. I have personally won 9 awards, including Training Academy of the Year, Lash Artist of the Year, plus others. Obviously, COVID has knocked us back, like so many other salons. We are hoping we can open up for restrictions soon and get back to doing what we love. You can vote for Rachel. It's still up and running until February 28th, and the public can vote by using and following the link. It's hearts.ankle-biters.co.uk/best party supplier in Hertfordshire. I'm not going to repeat that, but yeah, look for it online. Look for it online. In their Essex constituency, See, we got shout out about Lidl, new Lidl being opened. Essex Lidl, brand new Lidl store could be opening in Rainham. The store is asking residents for Rainham Road in Rainham, havering close to town centre and just half a mile from the local train station. Planning for a new Lidl will be subject when residents will be able to view the application in full. If built, it will be located next to the Select Catholic Primary School, as well as a number of residential properties and more. On the new Lidl Rainham's website, it states Lidl's project team will ensure that the development is treated sensitively, relating sympathetically to the site and its surroundings, whilst also addressing transportation, design, and sustainability matters. The new dedicated egress for the school and the church onto Rainham Road, providing a safer arrangement than the existing that is shared with the redevelopment site, prone to traffic conflict. Lidl has distributed leaflets to local residents containing information relating the new proposed retail unit. The planning application will be submitted shortly following the completion of the survey. The leaflet contains instructions on how to access a short survey that will be submitted to the Havering Council to be considered to help finalise plans and report that will be submitted. There you go, new Lidl's, they'll be up for community voting as well. So if you do want that to go ahead in Rainham, have your say. Or if you don't want it to go ahead, have your say. It's important. Thank you all for, not sure how long we've been going for. About 35 minutes, 40 minutes, not sure. But thank you ever so much. It means a lot to me. As you know, we are sponsored by PSS Alarms. Thank you all so much. I'll give you the update on that again just shortly. Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon challenges Alex Salmond over conspiracy claims. Nicola Sturgeon challenged Alex Salmond to prove there was a conspiracy against him, saying he has made claims without a shred of evidence. Mr. Salmond is due to give evidence to the Holyrood inquiry into the government's mishandling of the harassment complaints against him later this week. He says he has documentary evidence of a malicious and concerted attempt to remove him from public life. But the minister said any claims of conspiracy were not true. And she said Mr. Salmond had an obligation to replace the insinuation and assertion we had heard over several months now with evidence. The Holyrood inquiry was established after the government conceded an internal investigation of 2 harassment complaints against being unlawful. He was awarded more than $500,000 in legal expenses following a judicial review case and was subsequently acquitted of charges of sexual assault in a separate High Court trial. In a written submission published on Monday, Mr. Salmond said there had been a deliberate, prolonged, malicious and concerted effort amongst a range of individuals within the Scottish Government and the SNP to damage my reputation, even to the extent of having it imprisoned. He said the government and SNP felt threatened by the judicial review case and said he had documentary evidence that there was a fishing expedition to recruit potential complaints. In other letters to the inquiry, he was described the behaviour of the government as a disgrace, accusing it as concealing key evidence from his legal team and of leaking information to the media to damage him. He's also accused Miss Sturgeon of repeatedly misleading Parliament over her meetings with him, making statements which are simply untrue, and of breaking the ministerial code. Mr. Salmond is to give evidence to the inquiry on Wednesday, with Miss Sturgeon expected to face SNPs the following week. The First Minister said she hoped Mr. Salmond would turn up to committee and bring the claims he has been making out into the open. She said he appears to be suggesting some kind of conspiracy or concerted campaign against him without a shred of evidence. This is his opportunity because the burden of the proof of lies on him to replace the insinuation and assertion we have heard over several months now of evidence. I don't believe he can do that because I know what he is claiming a conspiracy is not true. If he can't substantiate it, it's time for him to stop making these claims because it's not fair to women, first and foremost, who come forward with complaints, or the other people who have been given years of loyal service to Alex Salmond, who have appears to be directing those claims to. In an interview with BBC Scotland, the First Minister said she would stand by what I said in Parliament about her meetings with Mr Salmond, saying she would relish the opportunity to go into detail. Hello, Goldie. Just doing my journalism. Be with you in a minute. She said, I will set out, I know, and I'll set out a recollection of all these things and answer any questions for as long as the committee wants to hear about it. Oh, well, this is a situation where I and others were faced with a really difficult scenario. Allegations against someone I'd been very close to. I dealt with that the best of my ability, and I think I made the right judgment overall. Ms Sturgeon said the government did make a mistake in its application of its procedure for handling complaints and said it would reflect on the lesson of that, but she insisted the new policy and be drawn up in response to the global Me Too movement, not for Mr Salmond. There's echoes of evidence given to the committee by Permanent Secretary Leslie Evans, Scotland's top civil servant, who told the SNPs that the government was not out to get Alex Salmond. Ms Sturgeon said she still had full confidence in Miss Evans and that she expected her to remain in post for the duration of the current contract. So there you have it. Miss Sturgeon is putting an appeal against Mr Salmond in the SNP party politics. Not everyone is. On my last segment, I expect to take about 4 minutes, and I'll be with you guys in your audience. I do this methodically every day. I read my journalism. Very, very important. It's part of my academic integrity of arts and humanities. Keeping involved in media. Depth of lockdown will be eased. So it's the last bit. It's going to take about 2 minutes, possibly. Each target date of when lockdown has been revealed in Boris Johnson's roadmap today. In a statement of the House of Commons today, Monday, February 22nd, the Prime Minister has announced dates that the government are planning to ease lockdown restrictions. Each stage of lifting lockdown will be guided. The factors include if the vaccine rollout continues an impact on transmission. Other factors include evidence that the coronavirus jabs are effective in reducing hospitalisation and deaths. Infection rates are continuing to drop. Assessment of the risks are not fundamentally changed by the emergence. It's good to contrast and compare. Now, looking at last to what we're getting this year after the vaccination. Is the R number going to drop after you get your vaccination? My parents are just having theirs. Mum had theirs yesterday, father's having his today. Other factors include the evidence that coronavirus jabs are effective in reducing hospitalisation and deaths. Infection rates are continuing to drop, and that the government's assessment of the risks are not fundamentally changed by the emergence of the new variants. The lifting restrictions across England will be conducted informally. Here are key steps when it is. On the first step, from 8th of March, the government will begin to cautiously lift restrictions in England. So you've got just under 2 weeks, haven't we? All students, schools and colleges and wraparound childcare, after school clubs, school sports can resume. Also allowing for up to 2 people from 2 separate households to meet outdoors in a public place for recreation. Previously, you were allowed 1. Care home residents will be allowed one regular named visitor. The stay at home order will remain in place. From the 29th of March, outdoor gatherings of more either six people or a large group from up to two households will be allowed. This includes meetings in private gardens. The lifting of restrictions coincides with school Easter holidays. Outdoor sports facilities, including tennis and basketball courts, can be open and people can take part in formally organised outdoors, both children and adults. End at this point and will move to the message encouraging people to stay local wherever they can. Working from home, wherever possible, is still also encouraged. In this step, libraries will be open on April the 12th at the earliest. Most outdoor attractions and settings are also set to be open in hospitality, zoos and theme parks. Indoor mixing between households will not be allowed, so you can only visit these settings with members of your own household. Indoor leisure, gyms and swimming pools will also be open, but only for people going their own with their own household. Hospitality is also set to be open only. People are set to be able to meet as two households or with the rule of six in a beer garden or restaurant for the dining. You go to the beer garden, if you have a drink, will that get taken lightly or people are going to take the mickey out of the process? Who knows? The curfews and substantial meal will not return. Customers will, however, have to be seated when they order food or drinks. Self campsites and holiday lets where indoor facilities not shared with our households can be opened. People can stay in self-catering cottages, but only with their household. Funerals can continue with up to 30 people. Wedding receptions and comedy being able to rise from 6 to 15. May the 17th and earliest we will see easing of limits on social contact more. The two household rule of 6 requirements could be lifted at this stage. But gatherings of over 30 people outside will remain outlawed. Indoor mixing between households will be allowed again. Indoors, the rule of 6 or a larger group from up to 2 households will be able to meet indoors, but this will be kept under review to see if it is safe to go further. Inside of pubs and restaurants could open at this point, along with entertainment such as cinemas, children's play areas, accommodations, hotels and B&B, larger performances and sporting events, indoor events with capacity of 1,000 of half full, whichever smaller are set to be allowed. Outdoor, the capacity of 4,000 people allowed, or half full, again, whichever is smaller. Largest outdoor seated venues, biggest football stadiums up to 10,000 people will be allowed to attend, or quarter full, whichever is lower. To step 3, which is May the 17th, almost back to some sort of normality. Up to 30 people are able to attend weddings, receptions and wakes, as well as funerals and other live events, including bar, mitzvahs and christenings. And more step 4 is the last one. June the 21st at the earliest is when legal limits and social contact can be removed. And it's hoped that the final closed sectors of the economy, some of which didn't open last summer, such as nightclubs, can be reopened. A decision on whether all limits can be removed on weddings and other live events will be made at this stage. I do my YouTube journalism. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying observed and both preserved. Have a good day, everyone on YouTube. Take care. God bless. One love. How you doing there, Goldie?